Peace everybody, it's Don Pedro from Noble Syndicate with another DeFi tutorial. Today we'll be going over one of the staples of decentralized finance, lending markets. So just as the name implies, lending markets are protocols that allow users to lend out as well as borrow digital assets. So for full disclosure, I'd like to make it known that I'm not being paid in any shape or form to create this content. The sole purpose of these videos is to inform those that are new to DeFi on what tools they have at their disposal and how to use them. So with that being said, don't misconstrue any of this information for financial advice. It's strictly for educational purposes only. Many things in DeFi can be very confusing to the new user, but lending markets are one of the easiest concepts to wrap your head around. So, in the traditional financial world, banks typically act as intermediaries in between lenders and borrowers. In decentralized finance, that intermediary is replaced by lines of code known as smart contracts. Now, these smart contracts are completely permissionless, meaning that you don't have to ask permission to use any of these tools. Anybody that has an internet connection can access any of these protocols. Another benefit to utilizing decentralized tools, or should I say lending markets particularly, is the fact that it is transparent. These things are all transparent and can be validated on chain. In order to verify the financials between, your traditional financial institute, a bank or whatever, you'd have to read their financial statements, and there's no way to really verify if the information that is being presented to you is completely accurate or not. So advantages to these decentralized protocols are the fact that they're transparent, they're permissionless. You don't need to ask anyone for permission to use them. Anyone with an internet connection can use them. And the fact that intermediaries or human intermediaries are replaced by lines of code, which make the outcomes predictable and consistent. So with all that being said, we're going to go over one of the pioneers of the lending space, known as Aave. Aave has been around for quite some time. It's one of the most battle-tested protocols in the space and widely used. There's some metrics on DeFi Llama right now. You have about 10.32 billion in total value locked into this protocol. You have a market cap of 1.26 billion. That's the Aave token. Got annualized fees here. In the past 24 hours, Aave's fees have been about 1.5. It's generated about 1.15 million in fees. About 35, almost 36 million in fees in the past 30 days. It's generated about $185,420 worth of revenue in the past 24 hours, past 30 days, almost close to 7 million. It's a lot of money flowing in Aave itself, and this is just one of the many lending markets in the DeFi space. A couple of other pioneers are you got Compound, you got MakerDAO. Yeah, there's quite a bit. But for this video, we're just gonna go over Aave, just a brief overview of how it works. Nothing too technical, nothing crazy. So going to the Aave app. Right now, we're on the Optimism market. Version 3, if you click this button, it shows the different markets that currently has Aave on it. Ethereum naturally. You got Base, Arbitrum, Avalanche, Phantom, Harmony, Optimism, Polygon, Metis, Gnosis, BNB, and Scroll. Right now, like I said, today, I think we're going to use the Optimism network. So on your left hand side of the markets tab, you have the assets that Aave accepts from lenders, as well as lets borrowers borrow or take out loans on. Wrap stake, Ethereum, wrap Bitcoin, native USDC, you got Optimism token, Bridge USDC, Tether, Synth USDC, DAI stablecoin, Rocket Pool, ETH, Chainlink, the Aave token, and you also have LUSD, stablecoin. The total amount supplied on the Optimism network. In this column, you have the supply APY paid out to lenders. You have the total amount borrowed, and you also have the interest charged to borrowers on this side. Another interesting thing about decentralized protocols or decentralized lending markets is the fact that the APY is paid out in real time, block by block. So, instead of like the traditional savings account, which gives you, in the United States jurisdiction, I don't know about anywhere else, but gives you less than 1% APY on your savings. And then on top of that, you wait, at the end of the year or whenever to get that 0.5%. These lending protocols pay out in real time. So you're getting 8.53% plus 3.47% in OP token just if we're just looking at the dollar, digital dollar, which is, again, that's pretty amazing comparatively. So how do you use this? Say, for instance, we want to supply USDC to get this 8.53% APY. First thing you do is connect your wallet. We're already connected. It says that I don't have any USDC in my wallet, so we're going to get some USDC. Let's go to Jumper. Okay, we're going to swap out this Bridge USDC for native USDC. Approve this transaction. All right, so now we have native USDC. Go back to Aave. Supply max amount. All right, first transaction is an approved transaction. As a safe practice, I always lower the approval amount to the amount that I'm depositing in the contract at the moment. If you leave it to the max default, you open up a vulnerability to your wallet. If the smart contract gets exploited, it is possible for that exploit to still access the amount that you have open to be approved by that smart contract, if that makes sense. Because DeFi is relatively new, this is all new technology, it is in itself, this current state, inherently risky, and as a user of this technology, one of your responsibilities is to mitigate that risk. And in order to do that, you have to be informed on at least the basics of how this stuff works. Okay. Now, next transaction is the actual supply transaction. We're approving to supply 45 USDC into the smart contract. Now we have supplied USDC, native USDC, into the Aave smart contract. And what this protocol does is once you supply your digital assets into the lending pool, you receive what's known as an interest-bearing receipt token. So what this token represents is your underlying asset value along with the interest that is accrued over time. All right. In the Aave protocol, this interest-bearing token is known as an A token, which stands for Aave token. In order to withdraw your assets, what you would do is you go over to the dashboard. The dashboard shows your current position, or our current position right now, which shows the 45 the 45 USDC that we deposited. It shows the APY that we're earning right now in real time. And in order to withdraw, what you would do is click the withdraw button naturally and withdraw, the amount that you want to withdraw, which can be done at any time. Another thing is, because this particular pool right now is supplying an incentivized APY on top of the APY paid out in USDC, which is this 3.51% in OP token. And that accrues in this available rewards button right here. So as time progresses, the OP rewards continue to accumulate. And, once it's, as of right now, it wouldn't make sense for me to claim right now because the transaction fee would be worth more than, the value of the claim. But as time goes on, that claim, the rewards, accumulate, and then, the user can claim whenever they want. Now, not only does the lending protocol allow a user to supply or lend their assets, one can also borrow assets. Now, one thing that confuses the user at first is the fact that these loans or these borrows are structured in what's called an over-collateralized fashion. So what that means is that in order to take out a loan, one must supply collateral to the protocol that is worth more than the loan that is taken out. Now, because this particular protocol, Aave, is permissionless, you're not dealing with, how can I say, intermediary or credit scores and all that stuff. What the protocol does is, in order to ensure that the user doesn't run off or to make things balance out and fair, one must always have more in value than what they're taking out. Now, if that ever changes, say for instance, in this case, I have a stable USDC, which is worth $45.19. Now, I can borrow, let's see what the collateral factor is for USDC. Max LTV or loan to value ratio is 76%. So that means that one can borrow up to 76% on USDC before or safely. Now, if the threshold crosses 79%, which is the liquidation threshold, what's going to happen is the protocol will automatically liquidate one's position. So let's do simple math. Max LTV is 76%. So let's say I deposited $100 worth of USDC. I can safely borrow up to $76, which is 76% of 100, right? Now, if my loan starts to creep up say for instance, I borrowed an asset that is volatile, like Ethereum. If my loan starts to creep up in value, right? Once it hits that $79 mark, which is the liquidation threshold, i.e. 79% of 100, what the protocol will do automatically is start to liquidate my position to pay off that loan as it increases in value. On top of the liquidation, it's also going to charge me a 5% liquidation penalty. All right. This whole process is all dictated by computer code written on a smart contract. The system has no bias. Everything is predetermined. So, as we said before, predictable, predetermined smart contracts, no human intervention whatsoever, which is remarkable. So now that we have a basic understanding of how lending and borrowing works in decentralized money markets, we can talk about some strategies that could potentially be utilized with these tools. So one way a user could use this protocol is simply as a sort of savings account, right? So one can deposit their assets and just earn a passive yield on their asset. This can essentially be like a savings account, right? Earning a decent 11%, almost 12% APR. Another way one can utilize this is to open up, we can say, a leveraged long position, right? So say for instance, I'm long on Ethereum, right? I could supply Ethereum and borrow USDC or any other stable coin. Now I'll have to pay interest on that, but I can immediately sell that stable coin, purchase more Ethereum, supply that Ethereum, and borrow on that as well. Now, any sort of leverage has inherent risk involved in it, and I'll also mention that this might not be the most efficient way to use leverage, but it is a way that one can use leverage permissionlessly. It could also be done in the opposite fashion, as if one wants to open up a short position. So say for instance, one believes that Ethereum is going to go down in price, right? What a user could do is supply a stable asset on the lend side, such as USDC, USDT, etc., borrow that asset that they're short in. In this example, it would be Ethereum, right? As soon as they borrow the Ethereum, what the user would do is sell that Ethereum for more of the stable coin, right? Once they have the stable coin, they can supply that stable coin into the asset side, right? If they wanted to use leverage, they can do this loop multiple times. So say for instance, they do it 5 times, that would be a 5x leverage on their position, all right? Once ETH drops down in price, what the user would then do is buy the same amount of ETH that they owe back at a lower price and keep the spread. Now, to many people that are new to trading, visualizing short sales is kind of hard. So let's go through a simple mathematical example. Okay, so let's create the asset side of the balance sheet, and we'll do a liability side. All right, and let's say in this example I deposit $1,500 worth of USDC. And I borrow $1,000 worth of ETH. And ETH's current price, we'll say, is $3,000 per unit of ETH. All right. I borrow the $1,000. I immediately sell the ETH for more USDC and supply it in on the asset side, which would then put our total at $2,500 worth of USDC, excuse me. And our liability is $1,000 worth of ETH. So let's say in this hypothetical example, I'm correct and ETH's price ends up dropping 15%. So now ETH is worth $2,550 per unit of ETH. And because our debt is denominated in ETH, it also drops 15% in value. So instead of owing $1,000, it then turns to $850. All right, because it's still the same amount of ETH, but because the value of ETH has dropped 15%, so has the value of our debt, right? So what then I would do to take advantage of this situation would be to buy the same amount of ETH back at a cheaper price and keep the spread. So we would subtract the 850 from here, add it to the liability side. That should have been green, but whatever. And that would end up making our debt balance zero, and our asset balance would go to 1650, all right, which would be a spread of $150, which is added to our account, and we would keep that. So essentially we would make $150 off of that trade, right? Now that would be an example of a short position going right. Now, just like in life, nothing is risk-free, and damn sure isn't in decentralized finance. So there's risk involved in everything, right? So what happens if we're wrong, right? I'm in a short position, and instead of going down in value, ETH ends up going up. Right. So say for instance we're wrong and ETH goes up 15% instead of down. So our liability would end up being $1,150. All right. And because our LTV is, or the LTV for USDC was 76% LTV, but the liquidation threshold was at 79%, right? So you would still be safe right here. In order for the position to get liquidated, 79% of 2,500 is 1975. So as long as the debt doesn't end up going to 1975 in value, a liquidation event would not be triggered, right? And these loans, because these loans have no time limits, they're pretty much indefinite, the user still has quite a bit of flexibility. So again, if the user paid the loan off at this point in time, they would be down, $150, which would be one option. Another option would be to add more collateral in on the asset side to make their health ratio safe from liquidation if they still feel like in time the price would go down. But in order for this strategy to make sense, it's definitely important for the user to have a good knowledge of technical analysis, right? So if you're not good at reading charts or price action, essentially what you would be doing is gambling, right? So last strategy we're going to go over is the delta neutral strategy. So again, just like the name implies, we're pretty neutral on the market. So let's say that we have $1,500 worth of ETH, right, that we supply on the asset side, right? Because we can borrow up to 80%. Well, let's see what max LTV is 80% for ETH. So we'll borrow up to 80% of our 1,500, which is, it could be 1,200, right? So we'll just say we'll borrow 1,000 on the liability side, right? Now, because our collateral and our liability are both the same. If ETH goes up in price, so will our collateral. If ETH goes down in price, right, so will our liability, right? So this creates that neutral lock, right? But you're not gonna get gains. I mean, you won't get gains basically, right? But you also won't catch the downside either if you stay in this neutral loop. So why would somebody want to do this? So say for instance, there is a liquidity farm or a yield strategy outside of the lending market, right? So you could supply your collateral, borrow on it. So the whole time that your collateral is in, you're gaining an interest, right, on your collateral. You have to pay an interest fee on your loan, right? Well, what if the yield opportunity on another protocol is more than the interest that you're paying on your loan? As long as the interest that you're earning on the farm the yield, as long as the yield that you're earning on the farm outside of the lending protocol is more than you're paying for your loan, then you come out winning. So let me give you a real life example of that working. All right, so we're in the Aave market, right? So we supply USD coin. We get paid out roughly 12%, right? APY. We'll borrow up to 70% of our collateral. And because we're doing a delta neutral, I'll look for another stable coin. It doesn't have to be USD coin. It could be any stable coin and still be considered delta neutral because they're all pegged to $1, right? So I would look for one with the lowest APY. Right now, that would be Synth SUSD, which is charging a 9.35% APY, right? So I would borrow up to 70% of my collateral in SUSD. Then I would use the SUSD that I took a loan out on, and I could supply that to another protocol, a lending protocol known as Granary, right? Which is paying out at the moment 36.62% APY. So let's do the math on that. If I'm earning 36.62%, and I'm paying 9.35%, the net would be 27.27% APY getting paid out in SUSD. So that would be an example of using a delta neutral to earn extra yield or take advantage of multiple protocols with different interest rates, right? Now, again, nothing is risk-free, and your job as a user or an investor in digital assets is to understand the risks involved so you know how to mitigate them, right? The more smart contracts that you're exposed to, the more you open yourself up for potential exploits, right? So it's best practice to use protocols that have been battle tested, but even that is not 100% safe. So just keep that in mind. So another factor to keep in mind when dealing with lending protocols is known as the utilization rate, right? So utilization rate is basically the amount of a particular asset that is being utilized by borrowers on the protocol, right? So the closer a asset gets to 100% utilization rate, that means that most of that asset is being used. Now, if a protocol gets into a situation where 100% of the utilization rate is or utilization rate reaches 100%, essentially that means that all the assets that were supplied as collateral are being used on the borrow side. Now, if a protocol gets into that situation, if a user wanted to withdraw their funds, they would have to wait until a borrower pays off his loan in order for that user to withdraw their funds, right? Now, there are quite a few techniques that protocols use in order to make sure that utilization rates do not get that high. One is the interest rate strategy. So as utilization rate goes up, as it increases, what happens is the interest rates that are being charged will also increase, right? Now, what this would do is incentivize those that took out loans to pay off that loan, right? Or they would end up paying a crazy APY, right? The APY will get out of hand. So what the user, a high APY, right? A high interest rate would incentivize users to quickly pay off that loan, freeing up the capital on the collateral side, right? Another technique that also is used is as the utilization goes up, right? The interest paid on the collateral side goes up as well. Now, this would incentivize users to supply more of that collateral into the pool, right? To take advantage of those juicy yields, right? So again, all of this is completely automated and deterministic based on the algorithms in the smart contract. Right. I hope this tutorial was useful for everyone. If it was, please like and subscribe. And until next time, everyone have a good one. Peace.